going on, everybody? Culturedog Sam Hatch back here with another Blu-ray review, and I did get yet another screener from Arrow Video, and this one they sent me was a tale from 1988, a classic Spanish-American film called Slugs. Yeah, Slugs is the product of a collaboration between American filmmakers and Spanish filmmakers, directed by Juan Piquer Simón, also known as J.P. Simon. He had put together the film Pieces, and it is a Jaws-esque, nature gone wild tale of mutant slugs, which are possibly nuclear in nature, that are rampaging across this idyllic, upstate New York countryside, small town, and they're tearing apart the flesh, they're eating out the eyeballs and everything, and some really nasty special effects in some of those scenes, a lot of viscera, a lot of blood, etc. Luckily, there's a small town health inspector named Mike Brady, played by Michael Garfield from The Warriors, who realizes, he goes with the sheriff to one of the first victims, this kind of old coot that meets a horrible fate, and he realizes that something's going on, and that these slugs that are in his garden are voracious and have an appetite for human flesh. So there's a gentleman in his garden who meets the bad end of some slugs, and there's this youth played by, I think it was Kris Mann who played it, and it's very typical Euro youth in horror films, where it reminded me of Demons, where these young kids driving around that looked like they were 30 and bodybuilders, and this guy too looks like just a little too weird to be a 17-year-old or whatever. But yeah, he and his girlfriend get involved in some sluggishness that gets bloody, and eventually putting the pieces together as to what's going on, our chief inspector Mike Brady realizes that there's some history in the town, and some nuclear history that people would rather forget, that may be leading to these slugs rampaging and showing up and then killing everyone and then disappearing. So he only has pretty much one ally. Well, he's got his wife, but he also has sewage department mastermind Don Palmer, played by Phillip MacHale. And he's the one guy that listens to these theories about slugs being the culprits in all these murders. And that's where the film really kind of finds its hilarity, unintentionally, of course. It wears that Jaws template proudly, in that the Chief Brody type character is going against the grain and proclaiming the truth of the matter, while everybody else is keen on forgetting the kind of past about this town, and also keen on profiting from it, because there's a lot of characters that are trying to push these big property sales through. So the deal may be queered by this screeching of killer slugs going on, but it is incredibly hilarious, the level of absurdity they take that to, the number of people within this hierarchy, this government that this health inspector goes to, and just the not just disdain, but the outright hostility that they give, just treat him like a complete idiot, when clearly people are having their skin eaten away, their eyeballs are gouged out. There is no real rational explanation for what's going on, but when he's it could be slugs, and you're you were the stupidest man on earth, and he'll leave, and they'll still be so outraged by his idiocy that they'll be eating a sandwich and be what an a-hole. So funny. And yeah, it just gets so ridiculous to the end, and you realize nobody's going to help this guy. So it's up to him and Don Palmer to save the day. So yeah, some good effects. And one of the coolest things with the title sequence, it's got a bunch of slugs crawling over one another, but this kind of bluish hue with the Slugs logo, masked with the slugs kind of showing through. That was really effective. And the music was okay, but it was interesting that the menu screen on the Blu-ray had this really cool music that I don't even remember hearing in the film itself, and that was more effective than anything in the actual score. But yeah, so it's definitely very 80s. It's low budget. It's got a lot of actors, trying their best to, Spanish actors trying their best to do American roles, and the dubbing, etc., is kind of goofy, especially this one scientist character that's looking into the nature of the slugs, and so it's pretty cheesy stuff, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the kind of like comedic elements of Mike Brady and the rest of the world's failure to understand his truth. That was pretty fun. But yeah, again, the effect scenes were capable for sure. And while it's not a cinematic classic, it was definitely worth checking out on Blu-ray. So yeah, the sucker is restored from the original film elements, and yeah, it's pretty gorgeous. It looks great for a low-budget 80s flick, and the colors pop, when they pop. There's obviously some reds and stuff like that, and I didn't notice any digital artifacting, etc. It was grain, looked healthy, and yeah, it was a decent looking low budget film. Again, it's one of those things that I would have seen on VHS had I seen it back in the day. So it was really cool seeing it like this for the first time, which is pretty close to catching it on a film print, which is probably even looks better than I would have seen it in a theatrical exhibition, even though I didn't really receive much of a theatrical run here in the States. Audio is just stereo, but yeah, fairly effective in the PCM, uncompressed audio. The music's okay, nothing amazing. Dialogue's intelligible, even though the dubbing is pretty goofy at times for some of those characters. Nothing really amazing per se, but just low budget B-movie, horror movie activity. As per usual with Arrow, there's a lot of good extras on this sucker. There's the Lion's Den, an interview and locations tour with the production manager, Larry Ann Evans. And yeah, that was pretty cool. You get to see the love of this film from the people that were involved in the making of it. And it gets a little bit personal at times, too, between this woman's relationship with J.P. Simon and the rest of the cast and crew and the Spanish production team. So yeah, that was more in-depth than I was expecting it to be. There's also Invasion USA, interview with the art director, and Here's Slugs in Your Eye, an interview with actor Emilio Linder, and yeah, that was a lot of all in Spanish, of course, reminiscing about the making of the film, but subtitled for your pleasure. And there's also They Slime, They Ooze, They Kill, the effects of slugs, with an interview with effects artist Carlo DeMarchis, again, subtitled in English, but audio in Spanish. There's commentary tracks. Interestingly, my write-up only mentions the commentary from Chris Alexander of Fangoria fame, etc. But there's also another commentary with the author. This is actually based on a book, a British book, that was pretty well known called Slugs, from Shaun Hutson, and he is on the alternate commentary track. Both commentary tracks were very, very lively and fun and engaging and irreverent, for sure. Shaun Hutson is a character, and he definitely takes it with a grain of salt, so to speak. The changes that were wrought on this B-movie adaptation of his book. But he and the moderator had a pretty good time tearing through it all. And the Chris Alexander one was really fun too. He realizes this film isn't a cinematic masterpiece, but has some stuff going for it. But he brings some comedy elements to some of the proceedings. So they were both really cool. Then there's a 1988 Goya Awards promo reel, theatrical trailer, a reversible sleeve featuring the original and some newly commissioned artwork by Wes Benscoter, and a fully illustrated collector's booklet with some writings from Michael Gingold. So yeah, all out, fun stuff, silly nature going wild tale from the 80s, and low budget but a lot of fun. And it was a welcome addition to my Halloween horror movie challenge this year, so check it out. Thanks for hanging out. I'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.